Welcome everyone to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian. I'm Sergeant Chelsea Weaver.
I'm PFC Anna Grace Catoe.
And today we are talking about a very important topic, so I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves and then we're going to go right into it.
Hi, I'm Kristen Riglietti. I am the Suicide Prevention Coordinator for the South Carolina National Guard.
My name is Sergeant Travis Duncan. I am the START NCOIC for the South Carolina Army National Guard.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate both of you taking the time to come here today so that we can talk about this, because September is Suicide Prevention Month, and it's important for us to not only talk about it during September, but also throughout the rest of the year. So I know that there's some new information and stuff that we're trying to push out. So, but I do want to start with Sergeant Duncan. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about what the START program is? Because I know it's a new program that people probably haven't heard of yet.
Right. The START program is a Living Works product that is a virtual-based, anytime, 90-minute baseline program for suicide prevention and intervention.
Okay. And then could you kind of explain what your position is, like a day-to-day basis of what you do and how that's different from the START program versus like working with service member family care?
Right. So my main focus is going out to the units, administering the unit risk inventories. One of those questions is about suicide. So we screen those when they're completed right there and then for that question about suicide. So that way we can let the command team know if there is anybody who answered yes to those questions about suicide. The surveys are anonymous, so we're not going to know the specific individual, but then we know, okay, if there's a group of people who have answered yes to these questions, the resources that we can provide for that unit. And then we also provide the annual suicide prevention training that every unit needs to have. And then we also provide a more in-depth class to have suicide intervention officers embedded in the unit. So those are people who will be trained in suicide intervention and crisis intervention, so that if somebody in the unit is feeling suicidal, that's somebody they could go to talk to let them know what's going on, rather than maybe if they don't have somebody in their personal life, or they don't feel comfortable calling a crisis line, they want to talk to a familiar face.
Okay. Now, I mean, I know that this is a very important topic and all that, but what are specific things that we should be talking about, especially during this month? Or what are signs that people can look out for to know that if somebody needs help when they might not want to ask for the help, or they might not even know that they need the help?
Well, first and foremost, September is, Suicide Prevention Month, but we should be thinking about this year round. You know what I mean? And us being the organization that we are and how closely embedded that we are, we're like family, and we should be trying to look out for those warning signs, because people go through the ebbs and flows, right? They have different things going on in their lives. So as service members, as team members, we should be looking for those changes in behavior and asking how people are actually doing. You know what I mean? And the most difficult part is asking the difficult question.
I agree. And we have the statistical data of what are specific warning signs, and a lot of those almost apply automatically to the military, like access to lethal means. I would venture to say most military members probably have a weapon at home or a gun at home. Just due to the nature of the job being in the military, I think kind of doesn't help to mitigate against suicide. But I would say the biggest thing that I always tell the units to look out for is any distinct change in somebody's behavior or personality. So if somebody is normally very quiet and to themselves, and then you notice they're branching out more, they're a little bit more talkative, they have a little bit more energy, or the opposite. If they're usually a social butterfly, very happy-go-lucky, talking to people, and then they seem more withdrawn, a little bit more quiet, it doesn't automatically mean suicide, but it means that you need to maybe just ask what's going on with that person.
Okay. So we know that with service member family care, there's all these different subcategories within that and all these resources that soldiers and airmen and their families have access to. So as far as on the suicide prevention side, what are some resources that we might not have talked about that they can access to get the help that they need?
The 988 suicide and crisis line. That's a very big one. It changed from...
It was 1-800-273-TALK, I believe. So that number is still going to be operating for a year, but now the 988 number is up and running also. It's short and it's easy to remember, so that's why they changed it.
And I mean, it's a 24-hour based line, crisis line, that you can reach out to. You can text it. You can reach out online and chat with somebody, virtually. You could just call it. And that isn't just for somebody that is in immediate crisis. That's for somebody that has questions that, hey, I'm dealing with this situation with a friend of mine or a family member of mine. This is what they're displaying. How do I exactly handle this? Are there, different avenues for me to, approach this situation without offending someone, or, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because truth be told, these situations are very tense. And they're not easy to navigate. So we need resources to help people get through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know in the past we've done events and stuff throughout the month to kind of raise awareness and all that. Are we going to be hosting any type of events this year, or?
Of course, in September we have a ton of walks throughout the community, and I think that's big for our organization because we are a community-based organization. We come from these communities, therefore we should go out and support. So you have the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They're hosting several walks throughout the state. Also, the big one is, for our organization in particular, is the TAGS Suicide Prevention Proclamation signing, which in short details what his expectations are and what he plans to do to assist the suicide prevention program.
Now, I know in past podcasts and even just casual conversations, like, there's so much stigma with the military, and it's not just suicide. I mean, there's other issues that there's stigma with, but how do you think we can break the stigma for people to feel comfortable enough to get the help that they need, or to be able to reach out and help somebody? Because, I mean, the military is changing and evolving and stuff, but I feel like we're still not there yet. And how do we get to that next step?
So when I go out and I do the suicide prevention training, stigma is the first thing that we talk about, because it does stop people from getting help. It does stop people from reaching out to resources or even family, friends, because people are afraid to feel weak or admit that they're in crisis, or they don't want to disappoint people. So that's the bad thing about stigma, is that it stops people from getting help. How do we move forward from that is, I personally like to address it when I see it happening. So if I hear a little bit of misinformation maybe about therapy or behavioral health, or even just some of those like outdated ideas that, if you're strong, you just handle your problems on your own. I just address it directly and try to meet the misinformation with some correct information. I try to really rely on facts and not get into opinions on the situation, because this is such a personal topic, so everybody is going to have personal feelings about things. So you may personally feel weak if you go to a therapist. You may feel weak if you can't handle your problems on your own. One metaphor or comparison I try to use with the units is, like, if you couldn't pass the PT test, you wouldn't, just be like, oh, and handle it on your own. You would probably work out with somebody who can pass the PT test, or, have somebody help you to get stronger and get better and move on. And that's really how I see that's what I try to convey to people when they are a little bit hesitant about getting some help, or maybe think badly about reaching out for help because they think that it'll make them weaker. I try to just compare the two.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think the best way to combat stigma is through transparency and information. Just getting the right information out to people, being transparent, and being, very honest about the situations in which, the stigma is built around. And, there's so much misinformation and stigma that traditionally goes along with being in uniform or just being out in the community in general, that it really does hinder people receiving the proper care and help and assistance that they actually need, So getting that information out there, getting them the resources they need, and showing them that it's okay. Everybody needs help,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Another thing, too, that we kind of don't really talk about, and the whole thing goes back to watching behavioral changes and stuff and to see those signs. But, there's some situations where you necessarily don't know that somebody's going through something because they hide it so well. Mm-hmm. But for somebody who is in that middle stage of, they know something's wrong, but they're not sure how to deal with it, and they're kind of just pushing through life and just going through the motions of their day-to-day, what are resources, or what can they do to get the help before it gets to that crisis point of possibly no return and to not be able to come back from? How can we get people to realize that it's okay, that everybody goes through situations and traumatic experiences and stuff, and it's okay to get the help versus bottling it up inside and letting it get to the point of a crisis situation?
Well, first and foremost, the little acts count.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're a person that is observing these changes in a person that you know really well and you're not quite sure, just ask. Little things help. And if they say nothing's going on, everything's okay, that's all right. Just still continue to watch, continue to ask, and just dig a little bit deeper. Now, if that persists on, there's nothing wrong with escorting somebody to a professional for help. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When people are at their lowest and they are dealing with these struggles that life throws at them, they feel the most alone in those moments. And they need somebody that really cares about them to really lead them to water, basically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's really tough to deal with those things by yourself. And then on top of that, admit that you're having these struggles. Because, in our society right now, the big thing is everybody should be happy all day, every day. We should always be happy. Well, that's not the solid truth, though. We're not always happy. We're not always have good days. It's a part of life. But we have friends. We have family members. Those people are put in our lives to help, when we struggle the most. And it's okay to struggle. And another thing is, we also have to think about the big thing of knowing when to really fully accept it, right? Hey, I really do have a problem. I really do need help, and just letting go. Because the big thing is denial, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody that's figuring I can manage this on my own, just sometimes they can't. And having persistent friends and family members and team members is key to success in that.
I think sometimes people get so in the flow of just white knuckling through it and just be I'll just push through. And while that might work in the short term, that's not sustainable. That nobody can white knuckle it for forever, So I think Sergeant Duncan was saying, having those people around to say, just checking in on you, here if you need anything. That's when you know, okay, I can't white knuckle it anymore. I can't just like get through this alone. That there is somebody, even if it's just one person that you can say like, hey, I don't even know where to start. Like, I don't even know what I need to do, or I just know that I've been feeling this way and what I'm doing now isn't working anymore. And I need help. I need to change something.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were talking about transparency, though. I think something that might help everyone out is if we all were more honest and transparent about, like, the steps that we can take before it becomes a huge deal for anyone, like how we should be able to normalize going to therapy because we're stressed out, or just, day-to-day things.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big advocate for therapy. I mean, truth be told, man, everybody needs somebody to talk to. And sometimes a therapist is the best, right? Because they don't know you, right? They're not going to judge you, right? They're there to help, like, legitimately. That's their job. And you wouldn't believe the weight that is lifted from just being able to just lay it all out. Like, there's no judgment in this room. There's nothing that could really hold me back on it. Like, boom.
Because, like, I think about myself and, I have my partner, I have, my best friend, I have my mom, but sometimes there's just stuff I don't want to talk about with them because I'm already so close with them. Or, like, my partner's really bothering me and I don't want to talk about it with them. Like, I want to talk to him about somebody else, but I don't want to talk to my family because they're so involved in my life. Sometimes it's better to have somebody who's not involved in your life, and they're also a professional, so it can be just kind of venting and letting it out if you want it to be, but then they can also help you find some steps or some new coping skills or some tangible things that you could do to help get through, help better yourself, help with stress management, help with, like, all of these little things that happen in our life that we do have to deal with. That it doesn't have to be just talking if you need more than that. It could also be tangible skills.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought that up, because with going to a therapist and stuff, they can help you figure out how to work through it and deal with it, versus like me sitting here having a conversation with Catoe. Sometimes what the person might be trying to say, the other person is interpreting it completely different.
Right.
And then you get into those arguments of back and forth, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. This is one, like, and it's misunderstanding, versus like a therapist who can really help you work through those issues and help you understand how to deal with them and how to be able to express yourself or figure out why you're feeling those kind of feelings. So, I think it would be nice if everybody could get the help that they need, but I think it's always going to be that struggle of breaking the stigma, accepting that everybody's human, and not putting so much stress on yourself to realize that it's okay. But with that, is there anything else that maybe we haven't asked or talked about that you guys would like to discuss before we close out?
I would just say be there for each other, like, be kind. I feel like that's almost a little bit corny to say, and you hear everybody say it, but it's really just so true. Like, you really don't know what is going on in somebody's world to the fullest extent, so just be a nice person. That's all I can say. Just, be respectful, be kind to the best of your ability, and just try to be there for other people as much as you can. Don't burn yourself out in the process, but still, be there for each other and take care of each other.
I would say take time to listen. And I mean, that sounds really simple, but that's very, very difficult, right? As humans, we listen to gather information and to respond. In these critical instances, listening is extremely paramount, right? So when you're dealing with someone that is going through these trials and tribulations, these issues, these ebbs and flows in emotion, stop talking and just let them talk. Let them get that out. You'll get more information on how to help them from them, right? That's the big thing. You got to take time to listen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, we really appreciate both of y'all coming in today and talking with us. Definitely stay tuned, because next week's episode, we're going to be diving more into the START program. So we didn't want to get too involved with that today, but if you're interested in that and what it has to offer, definitely check into next week's episode. But with that, if you like this episode, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we will catch you guys in next week's episode.